Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So everyone has been watching these big billionaires, like for an example, Warren Buffett, because of what they have been doing over the last couple of years, because we have been preparing for a big stock market crash, one that actually mirrors, or if not, it's going to be worse than the '08 crash. And everyone thinks that because Warren Buffett is hoarding massive amounts of cash, that this crash is very close. The big thing that I want everyone to understand is that, we will see boom and bust cycles over time, right? It happens. We know that it is a thing that repeats. It might not be, identical, but it definitely does rhyme. But one thing that I will say is typically before the big crash, we have a massive run up. And that's one thing that I have been focused on when it comes to crypto as well. Everyone has been, thinking that we are in a bear market. But the thing is that we actually haven't had that massive spike to the upside. When everything looks like it's going good, everyone's posting pictures of their portfolio, they're buying watches, they're buying cars, they're doing this, doing that. That's typically the warning signs, right? Like when everyone's having a great time, that's typically when you should be taking profits and selling. It's not until everyone is having a bad time where it's too late to actually realize that you should have sold. But here we actually have a little bit of an update on the holdings that Warren Buffett does have. It's $325 billion worth of total cash and short-term investments. Okay. And we look at this and everyone is immediately saying, why is he hoarding cash? Because when you're holding cash, you're losing the 8%, or it's now technically like 6% or so in terms of inflation. So you're losing that year over year instead of putting it into the stock market, index funds, whatever the case may be, or even just money market funds. So everyone's wondering what's going on here. Is he preparing for something that we don't know is coming? But that's the problem, right? We know debt is at unsustainable levels. We know something's going to break. So is it really unpredictable at this point that we are going to crash? I think everyone knows that we will eventually crash. The problem is the timing, right? Like, when is this actually going to happen? And not even Warren Buffett knows when this is going to happen. That's why he is hoarding cash. He is aware that something big is going to happen. But what's actually going on behind closed doors? But over here, we have how long until the general public finally realizes what's really going on here. And by the way, big shout out to Finance Law for all of this. We have JP Morgan and US Treasury are bringing all the gold back to the US so they can audit and implement a gold standard. They created the Sovereign Wealth Fund specifically to replace the Federal Reserve. Now, I don't think that it's going to be a gold standard like most people are, thinking, which we will get to here in a second. But here we have the key points. From 1920 to 1923, the gold price was fixed at $20.67 per troy ounce due to the US gold standard. The retail and public trade price was also around $20.67 with minimal variations. The gold standard limited the Federal Reserve's ability to manage the 1920 to 1921 depression, but allowed for a quick recovery. Over here, we have recent discussions like Project 2025's consideration show ongoing debate, but no concrete plans. And this is basically where we start to see the gold revaluation, the gold reserves. This is where a lot of those speculations come up around those, big possible events. But here we have the aspect, the current state, and the returning to gold standard, and then the implications around the gold reserves value, the currency in circulation, the monetary policy flexibility, and even the global reaction as well. Now, again, we think about what's going on here, and we really kind of look at gold in a way of, if we really wanted to return to the gold standard, how would it look today? And this is exactly what would happen. This is the reaction, this is the policy, all that kind of stuff. But I think that we're still missing the big point here, because it's not going to be like the original gold standard that we had. It can't be, and it won't be. But how do we get there? I'm going to get there in a second, but look at this post as well. Now, why would Congress sneak an entire section about revaluing Treasury gold from $42 to current market value at the very end of the Bitcoin Act final bill? Now, again, this bill, a lot of people are speculating that it won't be passed at all, But look at this. Federal Reserve System gold certificates. Not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Federal Reserve's banks shall tender all outstanding gold certificates in their custody to the Secretary. Not later than 90 days after the tender of the last such certificate, the Secretary shall issue new gold certificates to the Federal Reserve banks that reflect the fair market value price of the gold held against such certificates by the Treasury as of the date specified by the Secretary on each new gold certificate. Upon issue by the Secretary, each Federal Reserve bank that receives a new gold certificate shall remit the difference in cash value between the old and the new gold certificates to the Secretary for deposit in the general fund within 90 days. This is very interesting. And it's also very interesting because we look at the possibility of gold having a big sell-off in terms of this like wave 5, because we go all the way back to like 2011, 2012, where gold corrected from the wave 5 and it started another, corrective wave. Now, are we looking at a massive sell-off coming for gold and for the entire market, and then we have gold revaluations happening and we have all of this snuck into a bill? Again, that's where everyone is starting to speculate. But what if this is much bigger than that? What if this is actually hinting at a big reset? Because around the XRP community, what have we always been talking about, right? We've been talking about a big problem that gets everyone to react, and we look for a solution. But what if we already have that solution? Let's elaborate. Okay, I get it. I've been really kind of going on about this, but I haven't been really, elaborating a little bit. Let's actually look into this. Number one, let's start off with this video clip because, again, now Elon Musk is tied back to this admin around Doge and all that. Here we have from Subjective Views, Justin, Elon Musk says 14 government magic money computers instantly create and send cash. I'm just waiting until he recommends that all government spending be placed on distributed ledgers for transparency. Now that's an interesting thing, right? DLT, blockchain being incorporated. Check this out.
One of the things you told me about is what you call
insane.
Magic money computers at the Treasury.
Well,
so tell us about it, because I never heard of that until you brought that up.
Okay, so you may think that the government computers all talk to each other, they synchronize, they add up what funds are going somewhere, and it's it's coherent. There's and that the numbers, for example, that you're presented as a senator, are actually the real numbers.
One would think.
One would think. They're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're not totally wrong, but they're probably off by 5% or 10% in some cases. So I call a magic money computer any computer which can just make money out of thin air. That's magic money.
So how does that work?
It just issues payments.
And you said there's something like 11 of these computers at Treasury that are sending out trillions in payments?
They're mostly at Treasury. Some are, but there's some at HHS, some there's one or two at State, there's some at DOD. I think we found now 14 magic money computers.
14, okay.
They just send money out of nothing.
So, yeah. We really look at this and we look at DLT and blockchain being the answer because of the transparency, the immutability as well. But what is this really getting to, right? Because again, we're talking about gold, we're talking about, a possible crash, all that kind of stuff. Well, then we look at what's happening outside of the US. Countries are now turning to cryptocurrencies to settle oil trades, while Iran and Russia have long been having discussions about creating a gold-backed stablecoin. Yeah. Gold-backed stablecoins. The financial war is heating up. By the way, we've been starting to hear a lot about these gold-backed stablecoins. Even more recently, another gold-backed stablecoin launched. So when we think about what's going on here, you're starting to see a mix of the old system and the new system, where the old gold-backed system is becoming a reality through the tokenization and digitalization process. Even over here, we have the Federal Reserve says stablecoins could back the dollar's reserve status. The sovereign wealth fund is being formed right now in the USA. On record, holds about 8,133.5 metric tons of gold priced at $42 on its balance sheet. Now, this would be a powerful move. Gold stablecoin. Oh yeah. we've been focused on this for a bit of time. And even here we're going to monetize the asset side of the US balance sheet for the American people. There will be a combination of liquid assets that we have in this country. And that's actually from Scott Bessent. Okay. And this is all around that US sovereign wealth fund as well. We're going to monetize the asset side of the US balance sheet for the American people. This is going to be a combination of liquid assets that we already have. Liquid assets is the key there, right? That's the focus. So we look at gold. Now we know why they, snuck this into that bill. Now, if this bill does get fully passed, I do expect gold to be revalued at some point in time. We don't know when. But I also think that stablecoins are going to be a big focus here. Why? Well, we just got the Genius Act completely, cleared. Now, it's not completely greenlit or anything like that. But we're starting to see a lot of big moves happening for stablecoins. Stablecoins are starting to become a much bigger piece of the US market. And once these are fully regulated, once we actually have a regulatory framework around this, it's game over. I think that that's when things start to get unleashed in a big way. And even over here, we have big shout out to Matt Hugan from Bitwise. Washington's pivot to embrace stablecoins as a tool for exporting dollar dominance is remarkable. Consider this snippet from a Fed Notes paper from last year. We're going all the way back to February of 2024, but then also June of 2023, because this post still lives rent-free in my mind. I suspect we see stablecoin legislation within 12 months. The growth in that space is going to be absurd. Now, again, this was February of 2024. This was a year ago. We're now starting to see big moves happening on the stablecoin legislation side. But we have a quote from the actual Fed, and this is from an article titled "The International Role of the US Dollar." That said, it is also possible that technological progress may solidify the dominant role of the dollar. For example, about 99% of stablecoin market capitalization is linked to the US dollar, implying that crypto assets are de facto traded in US dollars. The best way to confirm that the US will dominate the digital side of things is by focusing on what the big players are doing, which they're turning the cryptocurrencies. They're looking at gold-backed stablecoins as well. The best way to win this financial war that's heating up is by launching a stablecoin backed by gold. And the best way to do this is by doing it during the big crash, while everything's low, everything's cheap, stockpiling massive amounts of gold, launching the gold-backed stablecoin, while we are in the process of creating a crypto reserve, a crypto stockpile, and we're now pushing for crypto legislation in the US, while we have a complete full army basically around crypto, because we have, a pro-crypto SEC, we have a pro-crypto Congress, a pro-crypto presidential admin. I mean, what better time to get behind this than now? And guess what? The environment is hot for this. We have a trade war. We have, a huge discussion happening around tariffs, which is which I would say it's exciting, but it's not exciting, because again, the tariff discussions and the trade war are good and they're beneficial long term. Short term, they do provide a lot of pain. There's a lot of benefits also short term, but for the major ones, it's more so long term. But the reason why I look at what's happening around tariffs and the trade war is that it's also accelerating the push on, a possible crisis happening, a financial crisis. Now, why would we want a financial crisis? Well, because again, the Fed has been very supportive of tokenization, stablecoins, things like that. And they've been talking about this for years, even going all the way back to 2023. Okay. Why would we want a crisis? Well, you already know the quote. Never let a crisis go to waste. Go back to COVID. What happened immediately after COVID? All the big organizations, all of the big players, they started to talk about digitalization. We need digital cash. We need CBDCs. We need to, move away from paper-based, money. Look at all the paper-based transactions are dropping significantly in dominance. Well, no wonder why. Everything was paused. Everything was, completely shut off. So we look at what's happening here. Does Warren Buffett know what's coming? Probably, right? We're all, sitting in the same seat here, looking at debt, looking at consumer debt, looking at, how much money people actually have left over. And we're starting to see everything drying up. So we question what actually does come next. Well, number one, I do think that everything, pushes higher. I think that we have a blow off top essentially. That leads us into one of the biggest crashes that we've ever seen. And what will come from that is the big reset to a gold-backed stablecoin system, all issued out, trading live on DLT and blockchain 24/7. Everything starts to move on chain. Everything starts to get tokenized. This is basically the beginning of a complete reset, a financial reset. And I think that we need to pay attention on what's really going on here, because the Fed, Elon, everyone sees this. We've been hearing talks about blockchain. We've been hearing talks about, blockchain from Elon Musk. He's actually been supportive of blockchain and DLT in the government system. This is something that I think it's already in the, process of happening. We just need that big problem. We need the reaction, and then we need the solution. And I think that we already have the solution. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely will like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.